Hey guys, and welcome to Pinnacle.
And that's the intro. Thank you everyone for being here as always.
I'm using that as the intro. Thanks, Amy. Welcome along to our second group of the ESL Pro League Season 16 preview. So it'll be Group B. We're going to go through our fantasy teams at the end. But firstly, we want to discuss Group A, how that unfolded. Just go through some of our predictions. We are down Freddie at the minute as he is just moved. So you might see some clips of him here and there. But yeah, the pretty boy is gone. So for now,
just the ugly mug's left.
So that's a lot left. We did try and contact Rez and Device, but we couldn't get those either. We need some sex appeal on the channel.
Contact Device.
Oh, come on.
I'm taking it off. I'm taking it off.
It looked like they needed it.
They really did. So yeah, Group A, Vitality went 5-0, which I think. I don't think it was really in question that they could do it. I think it was more like if they beat Na'Vi, which is the hardest matchup for most teams in that group, then they were gonna look in contention for that. And then as soon as everyone saw the way Nip performed, it was like, yeah, well, as long as they beat Na'Vi, they can go 5-0 in this group.
It's still early days for Vitality as well, and what they showed was pretty impressive. It's a lot more survivability, it seems like. You get towards the end of the long games, it gets 14-14, and Masuta Vitality would have, and not necessarily because of Masuta, but it feels like Vitality with the Masuta iteration of Vitality would have fallen apart. Spinks either seems to step up in those moments, or there's something about the atmosphere, the culture, or they've worked on something and they've developed as a team and it's irrelevant to change. But the positions they were in, and if that continues, that's great. If it doesn't, and it's a one-off thing, fair enough. But they seem to cope a lot more with being in high-pressure situations than they used to.
It feels a lot more of a confidence thing as well. I think just naturally having that upgrade of Spinks in the team, and also just looking at the body language, you kind of see it when they cut to cameras. They look, obviously they are winning games, so they're going to be happier, but it looks a lot more much of a positive atmosphere.
And
which could be an element of Spinks coming in. You definitely do need it. It actually just makes you play better.
In a team with Apex and Dupree, that is vital. You need that atmosphere, and I think having someone like Spinks who, it's arguably carried Ents to the position they're in, along as that team just gelling really well together, but being their consistent top fragger, having him come into that team, there's no way you're not confident. And he's probably extremely confident now playing with the likes of Zaiwu. And then you've got MVP winners, major winners on the team. Magic's won the MVP, you've got Apex who's a winner, Dupree is a winner, and then the guy who's your fifth man in that roster hasn't won a major, but it's Zaiwu. So it's well, what more could you ask for in a team? The amount of experience there, he must be learning so much. And I think as a player, he's just only going to get better and better.
Yeah, we mocked Jacob's fantasy team, but Zoe absolutely farmed.
Yeah, compared to I think Simple being 250 in that team, and then Zoe was 230. Yeah. It was the difference in performance was unreal, but.
Are we getting a 2019-2020 repeat where Zoe just absolutely inflates his rating at the back end of the year and just wins the HLTV #1 for no reason?
It's possible with the new team.
Maybe.
It's completely possible. But Na'Vi
it's all about the major performance though, isn't it?
Yeah. That is important. And the R, they're in the RMRs, aren't they? So, but yeah, Na'Vi completely underperformed, and so did Nip. They were two teams. Na'Vi lost 2-0 to Endpoint, which was the biggest shock. But we're all happy about that.
Oh yeah, of course. Nerds, my boy Nerds. He's the second highest impact rated player in the group, I think.
It's incredible.
He played unreal, yeah.
Absolutely outstanding.
Was it who had Nerds in their team?
Freddie.
He said if they're gonna win games, he will be performing. So he was right, and they won one game, and then we kind of all worried about them beating Nip, but Nip finally turned it around because halfway through the tournament they thought, Rez, do you want to AWP? And he did, and he had some insane series on it. He took down Na'Vi with the AWP and took down Endpoint AWPing.
He looked more consistent on the AWP.
Yeah, it was weird.
I don't know what's happening with that team, man. Like, there's no real identity on an IP, and that's been a struggle for them for quite a while. And it's so evident when you've got an AWP change happening. In of all people, you're putting Rez on the AWP as well. I mean, questions need to be asked. Changes, not so much personnel wise, but internally in that team. Maybe there's a clash of roles. I'm not sure. I don't know what Tag's really doing sometimes. It's a little bit of a jumbled mess. And Hampus underperforming as well really just kind of was a final nail in that coffin.
Yeah, I think most of our fantasy teams probably did so poorly because of Hampus underperforming. Yeah, I think he didn't go positive in a single game. I don't even think he went positive against Endpoint. I might be wrong there. But
for someone who is generally so consistently just
and usually Nip's top fragger, but I mean, like you even saw though, there were games or like a map where Tag was playing really well, but Nip was still losing, which was also odd to see. But then you take him off the AWP and he still played well. And I think what confused me most is when they first made the roster move and they brought in Device and then they brought in Tag, and then Device went out. It confused me because you've then not got an AWPer, but you've got Tag, who to me plays in a similar position to Plopsky kind of does. Yeah. And you have those clashes of the role where you're never going to get anything done if you have two people in the same position in a team. It doesn't work.
I thought that Plopsky was going to drop out when Tag was brought in. I thought that was the natural just kind of shift. But obviously for one reason or another, Device still isn't back in that NIP team. So for the moment, you're right. You've got those role clashes. You've got Tag on the AWP, who isn't primarily an AWPer. And you've got a hugely talented star, just not even on the roster at all. But we could harp on about that. I feel like loads of people have talked about the whole Device thing. Hope he's doing well regardless. And maybe someday we can see him in a team soon because he is quite active at the moment. He's playing a lot of FACEIT games.
Yeah, that's what everyone seems to keep saying.
Smoothie said he wouldn't wish half the things that happened to Device on anybody.
There's a lot going on in the scene with like people like Simple and Device and stuff that's happened to them in their personal life, which we won't go on to talk about. But no, it's something that's quite tough and it's difficult for viewers to see as well because you're losing two of the greatest players. I know Simples was only for like a week of Blast, but it's still like you've seen he's had a detriment to his performance in this group stage. I hope that doesn't stick about, but it is a sad thing to see if we do lose a player like Device and the caliber, especially if teams just can't afford to pay the 600,000 that NIP are asking for him. But the other two teams, Fnatic and Spirit, I believe I said Fnatic would be the dark horse of this group because they wouldn't know him, know anything about them, and they showed such a good first series against NIP. The confidence on that team is ridiculous.
Yeah, they're playing really well. And even in the games that they lost, they still went to all three maps. I was a little bit concerned because going through the RMR, they did struggle a little bit, actually to kind of make it through those open qualifiers. But it's the same case as kind of every single open qualifier circuit of ESEA. They're just best of ones, and you can literally come up against anything. You can't prep at all, and it can be a little bit difficult. But yeah, they look strong. Mezzi on the IGL, pulling the strings. Love to see it.
We posed the question, if Mezzi can frag, will they be able to make it through? And he fragged. He was often their top performer, and they went through second with the second most wins. More wins over Na'Vi, more wins over NIP, more wins over Spirit, who I thought the Spirit matchup was going to be a very close thing for Fnatic. Like, I thought Spirit would, take around the same number of games as they would. And they didn't look bad. Their first game against Na'Vi, that's always a tough one. I mean, you're coming in against the top dog, and they didn't look poor. Like, they look competitive, and they continue to look competitive. They took down NIP as well, and then Endpoint as well. But I just don't think they had the same kind of, fearlessness that Fnatic had. There was no expectation on Fnatic, so they kind of just came in and they took what winning duels they wanted, and they just won them. They knew they had the firepower. And they did. I mean, Wonderful performed great for his first real, S tier event as well. So it's looking good for both teams.
I'm just concerned about what happens when now you've had the Fnatic come out and burst out onto Group A and do their thing, and they've looked impressive. But what happens when teams actually start studying them? Where where does is there adaptability? Does the pace get maintained? Does Messi have fresh ideas each time, or is this a one-off?
Well, you've got a lot of weeks now before playoffs, so they can watch the other groups happening around them. Messi and Keita can definitely like get in the demos and start anti-stratting as well, right, for those games. They know they're sitting in second place. They've got a relatively good seed. They know what can be around them. And you've got that time to prepare. And you can also work on some of the mistakes that did cost them some of those games, because there were at times some individual mistakes that cost Fnatic, like losing these rounds. There's like moments like lapses in concentration, not clearing a certain angle here or there. And that just comes with time with gelling with the new team. Overall, very impressive first showing. I think going back to Spirit for a second, one player I was actually very impressed with over the week of the games I watched was Magix, because he kind of dropped a little bit after the major performance. So it's good to see that he's kind of bouncing back now. They've got a new AWP player. They're still relatively consistent with the lineup that they've got. And it's really good for that Spirit lineup that Magix is performing in that team.
Just to touch on that, when we were discussing our teams, me and Brandon both said that we were trying to fit Patsy in our team, because consistently he is that top player that you look at in Spirit when after Dexter left. And Patsy didn't perform too well. He was pretty average over the tournament, I'd say. But I also said that if they want to win games, they need to look at Magix to perform, and he did perform, and they've taken those wins. And Wonderful was also the worry, and he was playing exceptionally well. He was on par with Simple in that first map that they played on Nuke. So I mean, you can't really ask much more as a first showing. I think it's just gonna, like with Fnatic, it takes time to gel those players together so that they can build on this system. But we'll have to see what happens with that.
And Chopper had some good clutches as well. I think that was a big part of a lot of the maps they took. Some of them close ones, and Choppers 1v2s, 1v1s. Sure,
I think it's just a thing with IGLs currently where it's such a struggle for them to frag, where everyone just plays like on a much better level of Counter-Strike than they used to, because their brains are having to work so hard to come up with new ways to counter-strat anything that's happening in a game, because everything is just new. Like there's always a new things in these games. And on the topic of IGLs who struggle to frag, we're coming as a Group B now with the likes of Karrigan and Hooksy. But then on the other side of that, you've got IGLs who can frag, like Tabson, and you've got Jame in this group. So initially here, FaZe is the favourite. There is no doubt about that. They had incredible.
Before we get onto this, before we go and deep dive into Group B, we did predictions as well for Group A.
Yes,
I don't know if you want to touch on those quickly.
Yeah, go for it. Who do you want to talk about first?
So Freddie's at the top of the list, and he's not here. He did predict Na'Vi, Fnatic, and Vitality to qualify. So he got those correct. In terms of the order, he got the order completely wrong for the bottom half of Group A. He said endpoint above NIP.
Right.
And Spirits come dead last.
Okay.
Archer, you had Na'Vi, Vitality, NIP to go through. So not too bad. And he said endpoint would end bottom, which they did.
They did.
And then Fnatic and Spirit. I said Na'Vi, Vitality, Fnatic to go through. And then in order, I said Spirit, NIP, endpoint. So we'll take those.
Yeah, no, that's good.
And Jacob, you had Na'Vi, Vitality, NIP to go through. And then endpoint above Fnatic. That's brave. Endpoint, Fnatic, Spirit.
They beat Na'Vi, I mean...
Back in the UK. You had some bold predictions.
Don't tell me on the second day when they beat Na'Vi you weren't going, oh my god, Jacob might be right.
I did have... To be honest, when they beat Na'Vi, I was like, if they beat Fnatic, he is never going to let any of us live this down.
Oh, yeah, that's so true.
I was preparing the clip of him saying it. I was like, just in case they do take it. Luckily, they didn't. They didn't get a map off NIP either, so, I mean, I can be grateful for that.
But we did get...
Me and Freddie at the top of the predictions. I think I edge it out because I got the order right.
We'll work out scores and I'll put a scoreboard up on the screen for predictions. Nice. So then we'll do that on a week-by-week basis and you can see who's currently winning, which means we'll probably have to do a after-event wrap video to figure all that out. But yeah, Group B. FaZe favourites? Anyone else in this group that you can see going through? I think G2 might be the other option there.
G2's the obvious one.
That's kind of, I wouldn't say guaranteed. I think they've got the individuals where they can kind of just, run through a few of these teams.
I don't think it's because G2 are necessarily the strongest. I think this group is quite weak.
I agree.
I think if you actually just look at the HLTV page, you look at the order in which the group's presented itself, I'd say that's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
You got FaZe, G2 big going through, then Outsiders nearly there, MIBR for the win on the bottom. Obviously that one's wrong.
I'd change one thing.
Yeah.
I'd say MIBR are the dark horse of the...
I think Outsiders are...
I don't have any belief in Outsiders at all.
Neither do I'm going to be honest.
I do, but it's more because everyone talks about how smart James is, right? And he's had time now to prepare this team with the new players. I know they've lost Yakinda, and Yakinda is already shown how good of a player he is and how much impact he can put in a team. So that's something that is worrying. Like, anyone who's an Outsiders fan will look at that team and they will see the loss that they've had. But Buster's gone, and most people haven't even realised that. I mean, we have our own dream team that we do through Discord where we make picks, and one of our people in that picked Buster, and I had to go, oh, sorry to break it to you, but he has left the roster. So I think having the likes of Fame and Norbert in there, they are very good pickups, and
they are, yeah.
I think James has had the time now where MIBR for the win and big, I can see them beating them in a 2-1 series. I think, yeah, they might still be weak on a map or two, but I can't imagine that they're gonna bottom out of this. I can't see it.
I can't ever look at an Outsiders game and go, yeah, they're going to win that. It doesn't matter who they're playing against. I could not recognize the team they're playing against on the HLTV match page. I can bring it up and have a look at the matches, and I can go Outsiders versus, and it doesn't matter who it is. I don't sit there and go, Outsiders have got that. Ever. There's not a single time I sit there and go, yeah,
would you have more faith in them if they were still VP?
Oh, they might lose. Or they might lose. Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think there might be either within me or within the team itself, it feels like there's confidence issues based on the fact that they don't feel like they've got security in because if you're working for an org, you know where your next paycheck's coming from, you know what you're doing, you know where you're going, everyone's managing it all for you. You've got a manager saying you're going here this time, blah 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 blah. If you're just playing under a name, a lot of that is sorted out in the team and with each other, and there's got to be a new element of stress added onto that, isn't there? I don't know. Outsiders, how is that? That's just the name they've come up with, and that's using as a place.
Well, they are represented as Outsiders in other games as well. I know Dota has an Outsiders.
Yeah. So is it an org? Is it?
I'm still unsure on how it all sits. I think it's just so the VP players can actually just take their teams into the game still, but away from that, I'm unsure on it. I wouldn't want to get into it, to be honest. But
I think
it just feels like a stressful environment. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. It's fine. I say three things are kind of inevitable in life. I mean, like death, taxes, and an Outsiders game normally going 30 rounds. So I can see why you're a little bit like unsure about whether they're going to win or not. James saving an AWP about 8 times. That's always there as well. I think I actually agree with what RJS is saying. I like the roster they have picked up, because that K23 roster before those changes happened were very good, and they were competing and they were right up there. They won advance against, I think it was Sangao, like season 40 or 41, something like that. It was dominant, that performance as well. And it looked like they were like pushing to really be up there, to kind of compete with tier one, be like the gatekeeper to the tier 2 teams. Or if you can beat us, then, well, maybe you can be right up there. But as soon as those changes come in, you can see what that's done to the K23 roster as well. They've gone with Klax and Rajin, and they've gone very young, kind of experienced players. Klax in that roster has played with Seized and Guardian for a period with Trident, I believe. So like, I see what they're doing with that roster, but ultimately it's crumbled, right? And that the firepower on Buster, that's been upgraded because Fame is notably a better player than Buster in capabilities. I think you've got a couple of question marks whether can Norbert and Fame compete at the same level in tier 1, and then has James now had that time to really indoctrinate and incorporate the entirety of his strategy, how he sees the game, onto Norbert and Fame? Because I think Norbert did a HLTV interview and he said something like, James is one of the most intelligent players I've ever played with, and I've never seen Counter-Strike like this before, which is crazy, but it does mean there's going to be an element of time that they need, right? James got married as well.
Yeah.
Congratulations to him over the summer. But he'll probably be on his honeymoon for a little bit. Have they had the entirety of the player break to practice? I'd hope not. I'd hope they've actually had some time to just recharge and refresh. I'm excited to see what they can do. Do I think they can make it out of the groups, though? I don't know. I'll be honest, I don't know.
Just
how James sees things. Isn't that generally like the Wolves of CT Sport?
Just leading on, I think Carrigan has also got married over the player break. So
yeah,
you've got that. But I think you could see a bit of that in their performance at Blast. But I think they're going to come back with them. I don't think FaZe is really a talking point. They got great individuals. They
should make that through easy.
They should just go through. But something interesting you said was, can Norbert and Fame compete at the same tier 1? And I don't really see most of this group as tier 1 CS.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I think when you look at that and you're saying how dominant they were on K23, I don't really see a problem for them individually speaking. But then there is the concern, James had his honeymoon and all of that. So can they come back? Have they had the time? I think so. I don't see why they couldn't. And MIBR have just made roster changes. You've had Keto come into Big, so there's another roster change there. For the Win, had roster changes not too long ago.
Yeah, they had their 2 players. It was actually one of the best performing players on that roster at conference have now moved over to Saw, a little bit of a Portuguese shuffle. They've brought in Stadodo and KST, if I'm not mistaken. KST, not too much experience at all at the top levels, played in Fnatic Rising for a little bit. And Stadodo, not a bad AWPer by any stretch of the imagination, but not up there in comparison to...
If you look at some of the AWPers in this group,
exactly.
Like you've got James, you've got Searson, Monazy, Brokey,
Henny.
And even Henny, is someone with a lot of experience. Like, you wouldn't think it because his name has probably kind of lost itself a bit over the years for anyone who was dropped off during the online era of Counter-Strike. If you haven't watched much since then, he was around a lot before then, lots of experience, played in lots of Brazilian teams. So I think, like you say, he's not got, on that level as some of these other people. And when you say with the likes of Monazy and Brokey, who are AWPers that are performing really well at the minute, and AWPers that can just take a round and turn it on its head. I mean, Brokey pulled off a 1v5 at Blast, just out of nowhere. So, I mean, you've got to compete with that. I don't know if they can. So, I'm confident, and I was confident with Group A and NIP going through, but I am confident with For the Win being in the last place for this. I think their best chance is probably against MIBR, but I like Brandon said, I do think this is kind of outlined. Other than Outsiders, I think Outsiders will go through over Big, unless Big really turn up and System can perform online. But I think that is really how it is going to look at the end.
I think if Big goes down, it's going to be their LAN struggles again. They always look good online. I just feel like there's a mental gap where they get on LAN and they struggle. I think it's consistent to see that all their ratings have a downward trend online. I don't want to call them onliners, but that's the way it starts to look. I do really like that roster. I feel like Searson is a big point. I feel like his performances are generally the most effective when he's on LAN versus when he's online. But I think if they drop out for anybody out of that top 3 qualification bracket, it will be MIBR. Brazilian CS, my boys.
You're just trying to get on the good side when this gets posted on Twitter, aren't you?
No, not at all.
What about them is it that you think will bring them to a level over Outsiders or Big? Is it like Henny coming in? Do you think that's going to make that much of a difference, or
just the players pound for pound are better?
Over Outsiders?
Genuinely, over Outsiders. I think Turtle is a really good player.
If we look on MIBR, so you got Henny, Exit, Turtle, Yotta,
Turtle and Exit.
How do you even pronounce
really well
the last guy's name?
I'm not even going to try.
We say Brenzen or Biela Ara Enazan is actually how you pronounce it.
So how did you even say that? This is why you're the caster. I
just think Henny increases the firepower where there is already enough. Like Exeter are always up there, decent output for eggs. Jota, he's gaming. And I think Henny just adds to that.
To speak positively on this roster as well, they just won the Central Europe Series 1 for CCT as well, and it was quite dominant in the way that they won that. You've got Henny coming in on the AWP, which removes Brenzen's ability on it, which is good because he wasn't an AWPer, right? When MIBR made that switch, they promoted him from the academy and they put him on the AWP, and it was a placeholder role for him, but he's very good on the rifle, and it kind of frees up a lot more space for Brenzen to kind of do Brenzen things, right? He can just have a lot more space, and that's what we did in our academy. He was that man to kind of create the opening opportunities and just dictate the play a little bit more. He's going to have more freedom on this roster. Henny, it's a tough one to call how Henny is going to perform, because you say the name Henny, everyone has a bit of nostalgia to it because he was playing incredibly well before. Can he still hang after being out of a roster for such a long time? That's one of the questions I've got. But to speak positively on MIBR, I think they're on an upward trend right now. They're going to have that honeymoon period of a new roster, and they're coming into Pro League. It's a good time to kind of make a statement.
I think when games go deep, I think you see a lot on big, a bit of anger.
Yeah.
I think the culture goes down when the games go long. I think outsiders, when the games go long, they're comfortable. I think when the games go long for MIBR, I feel like you're going to hear the desks shaking as they're shouting.
I feel like they're also just going to be happy to be playing here. I think the opportunity that they have to play here. But my concern is when we've talked recently, I don't believe that they're even the best Brazilian team here. And and I don't even think Fury is the best Brazilian team that we have right now, but I'd say they are better than MIBR are. But when we did talk about it recently, I said that I think Pain are probably, even with the new roster changes, are probably the best Brazilian team, and they recently went on to beat Imperial in Melbourne. I know I got laughed at when I said Pain was probably the best team in Brazil. But they are showing good changes over there, and Imperial, I think they've got some good players, but I think a lot of this talent that comes up through Brazil is just getting shuffled about all these different teams. And Fury were really, after the whole LG, major wins, Fury were the only team that kind of stuck with a roster. They signed those 5-year contracts and they made it work and they made it competitive. And I think that needs to happen again for a Brazilian team, because Fury just aren't finding that fifth piece. They can't do it. It's not working for them. They keep underperforming. And MIBR's changing their teams. You've got, Pain's just changed their team. Imperial's changed their team. Double O Nation's changed their team. It's like, what team here is going to stick and then work? I feel like that's what they need to do. And they're just not giving it enough time because there is so much talent just lurking around in that scene.
Oh, yeah, I think they are the dark horse. I don't expect them to win. But if anyone's going to win other than... if anyone's going to qualify other than FaZe, G2 would be for me.
It's a bold prediction. Here we go. Let's just roll the seats back.
There's an upset every Pro League, right? There is an upset every Pro League.
There wasn't an upset in Group A. What are you talking about? Nip was supposed to lose.
Every Pro League season, there's an upset.
Okay.
For the win, out of all of these groups you look at, For the Win have actually got the best possible chance to make it through here based on Group B. Because G2 is incredibly volatile. If For the Win take a map off big, who knows? Do I think that For the Win can beat outsiders? Honestly, no. I think it'll be close against MIBR. I think they've actually got not a bad opportunity to do it. I'm going to be real. I can see it. That's my bold hot take for the entirety of EPL. I've got one in me. For the Win potentially can make it through.
I'm going to save mine. I'm going to save my bold prediction because I think Freddie's going to come out with something about complexity that I am not ready for.
Yeah, nice little leak. Yeah, cool.
But I think Group D is where I'm going to save my bold prediction.
If For the Win are even close to winning a game, I know I'm going to get a tweet from Brandon.
I do agree that they have a chance.
Well, what's your Group D hot take? Oh, EG are going to do it.
No, I'm not that bold. I'm not that bold, please. No, what team have they even sent? Is it their first team?
I don't know.
Have you seen all the Philadelphia news as well? They sent 2 teams to that event.
Have they?
So there's like a conflict of interest.
Oh, so did Davenport University.
Yeah, it's a mess in the NA scene at the minute.
We've got 2 UK teams going to Philadelphia though. Got Blackhand and 7am. So that's cool.
And isn't there a whole debate at the minute that is it Echo or Eco? I don't even know how we're saying it. Is it
Eco?
EKO, yeah. They're probably currently the best team. I mean, they've beat Into the Breach twice in the last 2 weeks. So
they did lose on LAN at Insomnia though to Tempera.
But we don't worry about LAN. They're not a LAN team. Just don't attend LAN events.
They've since made roster changes as well. Mad has been moved to the bench for them, and they're currently without a fifth. So they beat Into the Breach twice with stand-ins.
Yes, and they also had a stand-in the semi-final of that Beyond event. But anyway, that could be another talking point with the UK CS.
Yeah. Anyway, we're getting off track.
No, my Group D prediction I'll save, but I will turn up to the Group D video with my liquid jersey on. So I hope you're ready for that, and I will stand.
Bold.
Oh no, it's not bold, but I'm just saying I'm standing by liquid for that entire group. I don't care what's happening.
You can say for Group D is that Eternal Fire are going to make it out.
Well, we'll see what happens. But Group B. So we're fairly happy with how it looks anyway, aren't we? I mean, other than Emu, who thinks MIBR are gonna get through. I think it's a very competitive group. Other than the likes of FaZe, I think G2 is kind of still adjusting to that whole thing of Hooksy coming in, speaking a new language, adjusting, him not fragging very well, which I don't really expect from him when he's having to talk a new language in this team.
Hey, he needs time on that.
I think JKS is going to step up big time.
JKS was very notably, not performing to what you'd expect from him, but again, first event, he's just joined a new team. He's been away. I think we all expect so much from him because of that standing performance he had with FaZe. It's kind of like, well, he can come into any team and play out of his mind. It's
you've come into the best team in the world, right?
Yeah, you need to sit down, relax. You are now on a team. You've gone from having playing with the Australian teams and JK, and moving then to play in as a stand-in spot for FaZe. You've played on Complexity, and they got good players on. But if you put them on the likes of the FaZe players, and then on the likes of Nico and Monazy, and Nico has so much experience. It's such a good team for him to be on, but I can imagine it's very daunting when he's thinking, I've got to kind of live up to their numbers and do what they're doing. I think he can. I just think he needs time. So I do worry about G2 in this group, but I do think they'll go through as well.
Yeah, it would be very G2 to find a way to not go through, but
yeah, they shouldn't go 0-3 on the first day, right? They can't go 0-3 on the first day.
Pro League, right?
0-5.
I don't think they won a game last Pro League. I could be wrong.
Can we?
That sounds like a very G2 thing to do.
Where is the last Pro League? ESL Pro League 15. They went. Where even are they on here? They went 2-3.
Oh, okay.
They beat Looking for Org and Ninja the Pajamas. That was it. Nip had a really good run then in that group, and then on the last day, after dominating everyone in that group, they just out of nowhere lost to G2, were the worst performing team in the group, other than Looking for Org. But
that's so G2 though.
Yeah, there's no way they go 0-3. They never go 0-3, so it's not happening. But we'll see how that group ends up. So let's look at the fantasy team. I think we've got about 130 people now in this league, which is the numbers is getting good and it's going to be competitive. I will tell you. So I replied to Sponge. Everyone's talking about fantasy at the minute. They've just started the Celebrity League. They keep talking about it on the streams. It's a very good time for us to be doing this. And one of the guys responded to a tweet that I tweeted Sponge. And he ends up being one of the people who won the 2021 season.
Oh, okay.
He's in our league now.
Brilliant.
So if anyone is competing in our league, just know you are going up against a season winner. So yeah, best of luck, everybody. But we're gonna look at Freddy's.
What's his name? I need to look at his team.
Jacob Stinks. It should be.
No, that's Freddy's team, right?
The guy's name. Yeah, no, the guy's name is also Jacob Stinks. But, I'll find him after. I know he's Swedish, I think. So yeah. So Freddy's not here to discuss this, but I should hopefully have some clips of him over the top, just talking about his team. But what do we think about this? He's got 2 AWPers.
Wait, hang on. I'm just finding it on my screen. Oh, he's got Searson and Brokey. Okay.
He copies Searson off me because I make the best decisions. Searson is, Searson he gets his playstyle off device. He likes to bait and save his all. Maybe device and Jame, I guess. So he tends to have a lot of deaths, a lot of kills. And if he doesn't have a lot of kills, he doesn't have he has not very many deaths and a lot of kills. And even if he doesn't have very many kills, he doesn't have very many deaths because he just saves his orc every round. So he's always a good one for 3 points. I can see why you go with that.
As a talking point, do we all have JKS?
No.
Yes.
So it's just Brandon that doesn't have JKS.
I don't have JKS.
Okay, that is interesting. We'll get to that. I think
you'll see my team in a minute.
I think JKS is very solid. 179,000. It's like, for me, that's a no-brainer. He's so ridiculously cheap because of how he played at Blast. And I think everyone's willing to take that gamble, almost everybody. Carrigan on the leader role, I think, is a solid choice. I had Apex on mine. I think Emu had the same for the last one. He ended up being my highest performing player because Nip bottomed out. And yeah, let's not even look at Hampus' score. So I think that's a solid choice.
Brokey's like...
Brokey is...
I mean, he could be anywhere near like MVP of like half the tournament.
I think the debate for FaZe is Twists or Brokey. It's who's going to play better at this tournament because it's always them two topping with Rups in a third spot, and then sometimes Rain will just play Unreal for some reason, and sometimes he just doesn't, and it's that whole thing there. So I think Brokey's more expensive. He's only slightly more expensive than Twist. So I quite like the team. Crimbo as well is another player. If Big do well, Crimbo will probably do well along with Favon. I think it's tough with Big because it's always Tabson and Searson that are seen at the top, and then you kind of have to take a risk on who those next 3 players are going to be. So
I would have preferred to see Favon.
Yeah,
if he could have
I would have preferred
it.
Favon in there, but I'm not sure the price difference. I think Favon might be slightly more expensive.
I mean, Carragher makes sense. It's nice, easy points.
But overall, Jacob stinks, and I think the roster is... I think it's good. I think it's...
You need to have a word with him. I can't believe he's called it that.
So...
I can. It's really...
True.
We'll bounce over to the next one, which is mine. I made some changes to mine fairly recently. I had Carrigan in there, and then I had Favon. I think me and Brandon both think quite highly of Favon. But...
Oh, there you are. Let's have a look.
I have now... I've added Jame, and KST is in my roster now. So... Yeah, JKS, as I've said, I think he's incredible for the money. Monazy, incredible blast event. He's cheaper than Nico, and I think he has the potential to frag above Nico. Twists, I think, has been more consistent than Brokey recently, and it's just he hasn't stopped performing. Like, he is always super consistent. Jame, I've given him the camper role, and the first booster I've assigned to him is the Saver. So nice. I am putting that on against Big. I assume that game is going to be fairly close, and he's going to save a lot. I am looking to get as many points as I possibly can on Jame. He was 206,000. I think it's solid for Jame because I made some stats cards earlier for one of the other things that we're doing at Pinnacle, and I think his KD is like 1.26, even though his impact is like under 1 and all of this other stuff. So it's like, I think he's going to do well because he always gets a good HLTV rating, which I believe this is mostly based on.
He's playing Face-It Bugs. He's playing for KD.
And that's fine for me in my fantasy team. I will happily take that, and I will take the points in with the camper roll. And then
I rate it. Do you know what? I rate it. Fair enough.
I had to look at it and I was like, wait, the camper roll exists? Okay, I know who I'm taking. And then I couldn't really afford anyone else. And KST is the most expensive out of the guys I could afford. And it was all for the win players. So I think I just gambled on him over the other two. I think Diaz I just didn't want to touch.
KST is definitely the weakest player in that for the win roster.
Well, maybe I'll change this after. No, I'll keep it as is. But I think I've given them the new.
No, you've got him.
Yeah, I have him.
Great. I was agreeing with you. Yeah, he's one of the weaker ones. No flame to him. He just hasn't got the experience. He played in Fnatic Rising for about a year. That's the highest level he's touched.
I mean, his first game's up against FaZe. I've given him the noob role specifically for the matchup against FaZe, G2, and Outsiders. I do think they can be fairly competitive against MIBR and Big, which is why I'm not too worried about it. I've also, I just think he was all I had left. I'm gonna be honest. There's not really any justification.
What an opening game as like your first like proper.
I know
it is horrible.
FaZe. What a.
Okay, next team I believe is Emus because it is because we had Brandon go first the last time we did this. So your team is fairly similar to what Freddy has. You've got Twist over Brokey, and then you have Exit instead of Crimbo.
Yeah,
that's down to MIBR Dark Horse pick.
It's down to my MIBR Dark Horse pick. I don't want to put all my eggs in the big basket because they have a tendency to just decide not to show up, especially at LAN events. They have their good events and they'll do really well. And you're like, oh my God, Big's finally doing something. German CS, let's go. And then the next event, they're packing up before they've landed, basically.
Yeah, I think it was a concern when they looked so good before Cologne and then they turned up at Cologne and then didn't make it to playoffs. And you're like, well, you're in front of a home crowd. Come on.
They won Rubet, didn't
they? They did, and they made finals in Dallas against.
Yeah.
Was it C9? Did they play against, or was it ENS? I can't remember. There was an American tournament.
C9.
Yeah. So
I think Citizen's Stat Hunter just makes sense because he's a beta and he's an AWPer, and they always end up with good stats. Carrigan as a leader, he's kind of cheap, and his team's going to win all the time. Well, you'd like to hope. Twist, headshot machine. I mean, the guy's a demon. Exit, obviously, MIBR, Dark Horse, I think they're going to get a lot of games in. And JKS is just criminally underrated on the system because of his last performance.
It's great for us who are playing Fantasy. It's unfortunate for him as his first tournament back.
I think he's had a little bit of time, and I think you're going to start to see more of the style that you used to see back on Renegades. I think the guy's absolutely outstanding, especially for the tier Counter-Strike he was playing in his region. To come out of it in the state he's in and be able to stand in and give that kind of performance. Yes, it was not the best team in the world, but he was already hard carrying Renegades to major playoffs like it was nothing.
One of my thoughts for this entire Fantasy thing is I think that JKS will always stay at a value where he's going to be worth taking just because of the roster he's on. I think he's always going to have good series, and then he might drop down for a series, and maybe it's not even because he's played poorly, it's just because the other players on the team are getting all the kills. There's the potential for that. So I think, as a JKS fanboy through and through since, the early Renegades rosters, I think that he is going to be a good player just overall going forward at these events. I like the team though. I'm not sure. For me, MIBR is a question mark. I think all of our fifth player is always a bit of a question mark. You kind of spent all your money elsewhere. And, you can see you got JKS and Carrigan who are cheap, Twist and Citizen who are very expensive, and an Exit who's kind of in that middle ground. So I like the team. MIBR is a concern for me.
Yeah.
All right, you ready for yours, Brandon? You said you've changed it.
I'm happy. I think my team's good. Look at this.
So you've got Twist, Monacy, Hunter, Carrigan, and Diaz.
Yeah.
I actually like that team. I know. Good, right? I know that Diaz is he the cheapest player at the event?
No,
he's not. Oh, Hooksy. Hooksy probably is the cheapest.
Probably KST, right?
I think KST was more because I think that's why I picked him. I literally just picked the person who was the most expensive out of what I could afford. Really? I think he's the third most expensive on For the Win.
Hooksy's 168,000.
Yeah, so he would be the cheapest.
Oh, KST's 100. Oh, Diaz is the cheapest. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like if he is going to underperform, that's fine. But you've got the Nubro on him, which is good.
I just feel I don't want to put the Nubro on Diaz. I feel bad, but they're going up against FaZe first game, and they've got to play G2. I don't know.
It's when they perform poorly nationally, and now you take them international, and it is they are probably
but they looked all right international. But the issue you've got is the fact that they had Jerks and Story. Story won so many clutches. He had one of the most, I think, if not the most amount of clutches won at conference in like 1vx situations. He was unreal. And then Jerks like just popped off against Sprout in that series that they won 2-1. I think they reverse swept Sprout. And yeah, Jerks is playing incredibly. However, Jerks and Story no longer on that roster. You've got KST and Stododo. So I don't know. I want to believe. I'm going to say that they get out of the groups, but I'm going to put Noob on DM.
I do like the Hunter pick. Originally, when I looked at building a team, I wanted Twists, and then I was going to drop down to Hunter over Monazy, and then get a couple more like average players, maybe Rain and Jame and Flit, I think was like a potential roster. I don't know if the money works out there, but something similar to that. I think Hunter is very good, but once again, it comes down to on that team, you've already got so many good players and players that will perform, and I think he had some really good events towards the end of the year, but it is that concern of like, are Monazy and Nico just gonna make him a shadow for this roster?
No.
I think he's gonna play well. I don't think he's gonna underperform. Like I don't think he's gonna have a poor rating, but it is the case of like, are those players gonna play better? I mean, you've already got Monazy on your team, so I think it's fair enough that you've got Hunter as a secondary GT player there. I think that's a solid roster as well. I think we've all got very good rosters this time around. There's not too much that I'm like looking at and going, oh.
That's pretty true.
But yeah, with our fifth pick, it is always going to be a little bit someone that we necessarily didn't want to have to take, but we're just out of money. As much as you want to say Fuller when they're going out of groups, I can imagine if you had unlimited cash, you would have taken someone else in his place.
No, I don't think so. maybe a Losh Dosh, but apart from that, no.
Okay. I love that you'll say that with a straight face. You were dead serious.
I believe it.
Okay. If they make it out of groups,
I think they're going to beat G2.
No. Smile, please.
Endpoint was questionable. That's downright.
Well, we had previously made a bet where if they made it out of groups or if they beat GT. It was a bet, but basically I'd buy Brandon a for the win jersey.
Oh, if they got out of groups.
If they got out of groups. So yeah. We'll see if that happens. But yeah, these have been our fantasy teams. If you want to join, there'll be a link in the description. Like I say, we have a previous season winner now playing, so beware. And yeah, let's see who can perform. So you're going to do better than one person in the group at the very least. So yeah, you're good there. But yeah, that's been this. And join the league. There's 135 people in. It's getting fairly competitive now. Get your friends in, see if you can beat them.